the second episode, not some juvenile reference to something else. Um, I'm waiting for my buddy Jeff Morrow to be joining me here for this episode of Layman's Philosophy. We seem to be having some technical difficulties. I'm not exactly sure what. Oh, there is
What?
Jeff.
Yes.
He is.
You got me?
I got you.
You can. Am I coming in loud and clear?
You're coming in loud and clear.
Well, that's awesome.
Wow.
I'm trying a mic setup on this now.
Cool.
Yeah. Good. I can hear you loud and clearly. So
Excellent.
I guess we're ready in about a minute or so, huh?
Yeah.
I like your questions, brother.
Okay, cool. I mean, I just went on, I did a Google search and found some philosophical questions, and that's what I came up with. Here, let me show you what I've been playing around with. Let's see. Yeah, my other camera. This is actually my This is my iPhone that I hooked up using cable to my computer here. It seems to work okay.
Really? I was thinking about hooking up a webcam, just to see how that worked. A newer webcam than the one I showed you.
Right. Yeah, I've got these ancient webcams from years ago, and they just don't quite cut it. There seems to be a major lag, even though they're wired. Of course, there seems to be a major lag. That's why I tried this. My iPhone. I found a software, Neural Cam or something like that. It's called. Yeah.
Cool. Sounds good. Why not?
Yeah,
I'll try to download that.
Yeah. But let's see. Let me go back to my.
I'm going to unplug my headphones for just a minute just to see, because I'm going to have people coming in about half an hour.
Okay.
We might be finished by then, but.
We can be. Yeah, we can be finished by then. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I kind of don't like these headphones. They're kind of too much. Yeah.
Yeah. So did I get your name right, Jefferson T. Smitherington?
That's right. Indeed, that's right. Exactly. Yeah, Jefferson T. Smitherington.
Yeah.
And Jefferson T. for short.
Jefferson T. Yes. Okay. Jefferson T. Even though it's.
Even though my name has nothing to do with Jefferson and my middle name's Stewart.
That's right. Oh well. Yeah. So.
There we go.
Yeah, let's get started. It's 11 o'clock, which is the time that we had set to begin this thing. So like I said, welcome to our second episode of Layman's Philosophy. We've actually had a few false starts to begin with, so this is the second one that's been broadcast using the HAPS TV system, using this platform. Sharing, of course, to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter notifications going out there, so should be able to find it. People should be able to find us if they want to. That's the big question, though, if they want to, right?
And that's a good thing too, you know.
Right.
If they want to, is the operative phrase there.
Exactly.
Am I coming in okay camera-wise? My camera seems to be a bit jerky.
Yeah, it does. It seems to be lagging and not smooth. I mean, the picture is clear, but it's not quite synced up with the audio smoothly. And it seems to be, what do they say, dropping frames, as they say, I think.
Huh. Wonder why that is. Yeah.
I had that happen earlier when I was testing out this setup, but I assumed that it was because I was switching cameras and playing around with different things, and it seems to have settled down. Maybe yours will also. If it doesn't, you can go off, go to your camera settings maybe and switch your camera off and back on again or something like that.
Okay, if it doesn't shape up, maybe I'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonder what happens if I just take you off. I take your picture off. I can still hear you, right?
I can hear you fine. Yeah,
Right.
sure.
Right. Okay, so yeah, now your camera's not being displayed, but your sound still comes through. Now what happens if I put you back on? Um, and it's still dropping frames, as they say. I don't know what the deal is.
Last time it was better. I remember.
Yeah, much better.
Hmm.
Last time we had the focus problem, but there weren't drop frames as I remember. This time it's dropping frames, even though the picture quality seems to be good. Oh well,
Yeah.
live and learn.
Let me try my. Let me.
Oh, now I lost your audio. I wonder if it's a network problem. Yeah, I don't hear a thing from you now. Don't hear a thing. Lost the Jeff. I can see you. Don't hear a thing. Nope, not a thing from the Jeff. It's nothing. Cannot hear you. Let's see. What can I do? I think you've turned off your microphone. Maybe. Okay. All right. Well, we'll see if Jeff can work through his technical difficulties and we'll get on with our broadcast. Um, yeah, new platform. This is actually a very, very easy platform to work with, it seems so far. I'm a rookie, a layman, totally uninformed about live streaming technology. And
Hello, hello.
oh, he's back. There we go.
With Mike.
With Mike. Yep.
Great.
Yep.
I just, yeah. I reset. I went to a reset, man.
Okay. Cool.
And my camera looks a little bit better too.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's much smoother. Much smoother. Cool. All right. Well, we got that underway. So, yeah, like I said, this is our second Layman's Philosophy episode. After some false starts, we'll see if we can crank one of these out on a more regular basis from now on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I was talking about your name there. I referred to you as Jefferson T. Smitherington. You told me that there's a little bit of a history in your family with that name, even though that's not your name.
It's not my name. It's a funny story. My mother's very, very good friend, Marilyn Smith, who was a heavy smoker, a very, very nice and interesting woman. We had summer homes next to each other at this country club, and kind of like Oslo, but it was kind of the Laurel Mountains of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And just a great place to hang out. There was a golf course there and a swimming pool and tennis courts, and our cottage was next to her cottage, and we used to get together a lot as family friends. They had 4 daughters around my age, older and younger.
What kind of a story is this going to turn into here? Wait a minute. 4 daughters about your age. Okay, well,
we had Thanksgiving with them a lot, and our parents were great friends. And for some reason, Marilyn had this nickname going on. Hey, Jefferson T. Smitherington, right? So, just as a joke, and so it caught on, and everybody started calling me Jefferson T. and Jefferson T. Smitherington, and yeah, then my mom still does from time to time. Yeah. Jefferson T. Yeah. All right, so I kind of like it. It's interesting. It'd be a good pen name, I think.
Yeah, it would. That's great. Yeah,
pretty long.
Yeah, I think I told you before about my name. I used to hang out with a friend of mine. His name was Tim, and he had a younger sister and an older brother. And the older brother's name was also Daniel, the same as mine. And spending a lot of time there. If somebody would call for Dan, of course, then there was confusion as to who they were calling. So I had heard from my own mother that before they decided on the name Daniel, that Steve was one of the possibilities that they were considering for my name. And so I told that to that family, and so I became Steve then. They just decided to call me Steve. So
Okay, yeah. There you go, Steve.
you know,
We're shaking, Steve.
yeah, yeah. I
Steve-O.
answered to, all the time. I answered to Steve when I was in that house. Yeah,
Well,
basically
we're
only
calling you
inside that
Steve-O.
house. That never caught on outside of that family, but yeah, in that household, I was Steve. Yep.
Gotcha.
Which
You kind of look like
leads
a
into
Steve. I can see some Steve on you.
yeah, it kind of leads into our first philosophical question here. You know, does a
I love
person's
it.
name influence the person they become? Was the question that I posed. And what do you think?
That is a great question. Let me tell you a story about names, right? My grandfather, my father's father, and my father both had the most interesting and unusual names. And no one really is named these so much anymore. Once in a while, you hear a person with their name or the first name and middle name, right? They both were named Thayer Kingsley. The middle name was Kingsley. First name Thayer, Thayer.
Okay.
Very old English name, right? From British Isles, right? And you don't hear many people named Thayer anymore. There are a few. I've seen some actors, and there are some people named Thayer. Kingsley, too. Just a very unusual name. I do know a couple of Kingsleys. There's a Kingsley I've found, and his first name is Kingsley, which is interesting.
Right.
In Japan, actually, I believe. And
Oh.
I've seen him on an English teaching website, actually, right? Kingsley from England, right? So these are very British names, right? Thayer Kingsley. They both, my grandfather, went by TK.
TK.
Instead of Thayer Kingsley, right?
Right.
TK, because it was shorter, of course. And my grandfather was one of the first car dealers in America. Very, very well-known and very wealthy businessman.
Wow.
He had one of the first car dealerships. He was given the car dealership from Henry Ford. My father was from Peoria, Illinois, and they lived in Peoria, right? Okay. So one of the first car dealerships in America in the 1910s and 1920s, 19 teens, I guess I should say, in the early 20s, yeah. And so they were quite wealthy. I had a trust fund for a while from my grandfather, yeah, because he was, that was back in the day when being a car dealer, right, was a great business. It was, he was the president of this car dealership, right? It was very, very big in those days. Now, I mean, who wants to be a car dealer, right?
Yeah.
I guess it's okay, but you don't want to really sell cars, although I guess it's a good experience selling cars, right?
Yeah.
But his name was Thayer Kingsley, yeah, and my father, they had enough money. My father had good enough grades, went to medical school, as well as my uncle. They both went to medical school. My uncle was Robert.
Okay.
Robert Welch Morrow. So he was just Bob the whole time, but my father was TK Jr. So he was actually, quite successful in his job too, right? And being a doctor, a small town doctor in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, 40 miles from Pittsburgh, right? So I think, their names, were attributable kind of to their kind of success in a way. They're very different names and very kind of, unusual, unique names. And I think that was, who can say really, but I think, I think there is something to that.
Yeah.
I'm Jeffrey, which is just Jeff, basically, right?
Right.
So it's kind of, when you compare.
You never thought about changing your name to Thayer Kingsley III?
I have. I think we talked about this once, didn't we?
Yeah.
Did we talk about?
We could just call you TK3,
TK3. I wouldn't mind it. I was kind of hoping. I mean, in retrospect, after I learned the names, I was kind of disappointed that I wasn't TK the third.
Right.
Because when you get into the third and fourths, it's kind of cool, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm the third in the line, right?
Yeah.
Of,
Yeah,
of
I always felt that
yeah,
junior I thought was the second or junior was that's a name that I never wanted, but yeah, to have been the third or the fourth or the fifth somewhere on down the line, yeah, now there's a history there, but
right.
the junior is the step I'd like to skip.
Well, I think my dad felt that way too. He was like Junior, and he always signed his name TK Morrow Jr. Right?
Okay,
TK Morrow
yeah,
MD Jr. was it? But then, then I think that was a skip he wanted to avoid, so he didn't want to go back into the name, and hence he didn't name me that. He wanted to start from a clean slate, I guess.
right,
You
yeah,
know.
yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
that would have been cool. TK3, yeah. You'd go
oh,
to
the
a
third.
go to a Star Wars convention, you'd fit right in. C3PO, R2D2, TK3.
Right? TK3. And my kids could have been TK4, TK5. There you go.
Yeah. New and improved, yeah.
Yeah, indeed. I'm sorry. My kid and my grandkid would have been TK4 and 5, and
Right, right.
but yeah, it would have been interesting. I think, but then who can say, of course? But I think it was interesting. So then I started to adopt my full name, sort of Jeffrey Stewart Morrow. I like my middle name a lot, and Jeffrey's a good name. It's very, very common. So
Mm.
that's one aspect that kind of I don't like that much. It's kind of too common, right? Sort of.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
when I wrote my novel, I became JS.
JS, yes, yes. Yeah,
Mhm,
which
mhm.
is great. Yeah, I like that. I like that. Yeah. I always, I always felt. I mean, I guess because it is my name, but Daniel, I always thought fit me just fine. My middle name. When I was younger, I didn't really like it because it was too unusual. I mean, it's not one that you don't hear, but Wade is a little bit of an unusual name.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and nobody in my hometown or anyone that I was aware of had the name Wade. Of course, Wayne is a common name, but Wade was unusual enough that I didn't like it at first. But now, I appreciate the rarity of that name a little bit more. You're not going to find any more Daniel Wades.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of like how people sort of adopt their middle name and give their first name an initial and do that thing. Yeah,
Right,
even D Wade Minor or something.
right. Jay
Uh,
Stewart. Yeah,
J Stewart Morrow. We thought about that actually, but there are a couple other J Stewarts actually online, so we didn't choose that for the novel. But
right.
that's
Yeah,
that.
because if you make the first name an initial, then the Johns and the James and the Jeffs and all are going to be J. So then the likelihood that there would be another J Stewart would increase. Yeah,
All right, indeed. Yeah. But I
yeah.
liked Wade. That's a good name. Interesting name. Yeah.
But so I think part of the question is so the image of the name Jeff or Jeffrey, or Daniel or someone's the the ramification, not the but the connections that people make with a certain name that they attach with that person simply because that person has that name. I mean, for example, if you were a German now and you like the name Aldolf, you might not want to name your child Aldolf, simply because of the historical reference, the baggage that's attached with that name.
Yeah. I'm telling you, after Jeffrey Dahmer came around, I didn't like my name, right? So there was Jeffrey Dahmer. Everybody remembers him,
Yes,
the mass murderer. And then there was Jeffrey Epstein,
right,
the sex trafficking king. All right.
right,
He's another Jeffrey.
right.
Jeffrey Dahmer, Jeffrey Epstein. And who's the third one? There is the third one.
Dahmer, Epstein, and Jeffrey.
Jeffrey Toobin from CNN, a political analyst from
Oh,
CNN who was on a Zoom call, who accidentally or on purpose exposed himself on a Zoom call, a Zoom meeting. Did you hear that?
no, no,
Yeah.
I missed that one. Oh, yeah.
Jeffrey Toobin,
Oh, yeah.
and he was suspended, I guess, from CNN, and I guess he was fired eventually. Yeah,
Hmm.
for that, right, for
Wow.
exposing himself.
Right, right.
So 3 Jeffreys in a row. I'm like, oh no, I'm not Jeffrey.
My father's name is a little unusual. Again, when I was growing up, my father was the only one that had the name Dwight that I knew of. I've met many Dwights since then, and it's not such an uncommon name, but it was, like I said, the only one in the area where I grew up. And then my mother also had a little bit unusual name, at least in area where I grew up, Thelma, kind of an older style name. Dwight, of course, we had the president, Dwight Eisenhower.
Sure.
But like I said, there weren't a lot of Dwights. Like I said, there weren't any other Dwights where I grew up. And Thelma seemed like such an archaic, strange name. Since then, I've met many, many Thelma, and then there's a famous movie, Thelma and Louise, right? So it's that's a great movie. So my attitude has kind of changed, but I always, felt when I was young, I remember feeling a little bit self-conscious about talking about my father. Oh, my father, Dwight Miner, because it just seemed like such an unusual name, at least where I was growing up.
Yeah, gotcha. I don't know many Dwights actually myself, right? Yeah. No, I don't think I know any Dwights. I know a few Darrens actually, but nothing. And a few Dans, but no Dwights. Yeah.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's not uncommon these days, though. You're right.
Right. Yeah. I think there was a singer. I can't remember who now. I can't remember.
Dwight Twilley? Was that his Dwight Twilley?
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so there are a few, and it's interesting the way names kind of cycle through popularity. So recently there have been many more Liams because of the influence of Liam Neeson. Originally, I think it was, the famous actor, and then there's a singer. I think a singer is another actor, another Liam that's become popular, and so there seems to be a large influx of the number of Liams that are taking the name, children that are taking the name Liam, and so on. So that's interesting.
That's interesting. How about unusual names like Zappa, Frank Zappa's kids, Dweezil and Moon Unit? I mean, and I believe those are their names on the birth certificates. So those are their actual names. Yeah.
Yeah, I just heard a story about that. One of them, what was it? Was it Moon Unit that the hospital administrators wouldn't actually allow them to put that name on? No, maybe it was Dweezil. They wouldn't allow them to put that name on the birth certificate. They said, no, you can't name your kid that, and so they had some other name, but at home they always called their child Dweezil because that's the name that they had chosen. That's the name that they wanted. And when the child was in junior high school, maybe, or high school, they found out that the name that everyone was calling them was not the name on their birth certificate, and they said, hey, this is my name, I like this name, and so they actually went and had it legally changed.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, no, I missed that whole thing, but okay, I gotcha. That's kind of good they did that, because yeah. But I mean, how'd you like to be Dweezil? Hey, Dweezil. Dweezil.
Yeah, it'd be interesting,
Hey, Dweezil the Weasel.
Dweezil the Weasel. Yeah. Well, whether it's your first name, your last name, so a name like Minor, a Major Minor.
Yeah. Right.
I
always got things like Tomorrow or Moron.
Yeah. I was always threatened. You'll never be able to drink because you'll always be a minor, right? So.
Dan, you're still a minor.
That's right. Yeah. So when I went to Jeff's bar, why did you serve me? There's something.
I know you were a minor.
That's right. You knew I was a minor, and still you served me, right? So.
Oh gosh, yeah. And then there's unusual names even now that aren't famous people's kids. Yeah. I can't really think of any off the top of my head. But
so
like Lysandra or things like that.
You think that having those names influences how a person's personality will develop, the type of person that they're going to become, simply because of the name that they were assigned by their parents?
Good question. Yeah, I think it does. Yes. I think there's something to that. I think there's
Yeah.
something to that from your
Yeah,
psyche as a child, and
yeah. I mean,
also
there's
how you're treated outwardly.
right, right. I think
Yeah.
there's an interaction, between the name that your parents gave you, and of course, the surrounding society's view of that name, right? That the same name given to the same child and by the same family, if they had actually physically been living in a different location, where that name had a different image or association within the society, that then again that would influence that would affect the influence of the name on the child, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Right. Yeah.
So, I had a hard time, thinking of a name for my daughter. Ended up
Yeah.
calling her. We named her Lisa simply because it fits both in Japan and in America so easily.
Mhm.
So that was a major consideration. Wanted the kind of the bicultural aspect of that name, but that
Right.
kind of limited our choices to a big extent.
Yeah, interesting. We decided to name our kids an American first name and a Japanese middle name. So
Mhm.
my oldest son is Sean Kosuke.
Okay.
Sean is just I have Irish ancestry, so Sean is very, very common and good name from Ireland, right? So we did that, right? And it's easy to say and easy to spell in Japanese, easy to
Right.
say for people, right? So we did that. My daughter is Anne Mikiko.
Um, okay.
My stepson is Arsha
Right.
Amane,
Right.
which is different actually, right?
Mm.
But yeah, so and interesting. Sean has always been Sean.
Mm.
We started to call Anne Mikiko. We called her Miko-chan for a while. Miko, right? Like
Right.
the kind of shortened form of Mikiko.
Hmm.
But then when she went to America, she was Anne.
Right.
So she enjoyed that kind of cultural influx. Yeah, going both ways. Yeah.
I think that might be an advantage to have
Mhm.
that, because then you go to America, you're in a new culture, and in a way you can kind of separate the baggage that you bring with you from your former culture, from Japan, and kind of have a fresh start. You've got a fresh name, a fresh start, kind of the way many teachers do in language classes, where they have,
Mhm.
for example, my Spanish class, everyone had to adapt a Spanish name to try and adopt that persona within the classroom to make it easier to learn and so on. And so that seems to be a great idea. They already have two names, so they've got that system already built in. It's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, exactly. Does your daughter have any kind of a middle name or anything?
Annette.
Annette. Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Right. Lisa
That,
Annette.
that
Right.
was that was based on the fact that I grew up in the era when Annette Funicello was really hot, and so I always liked the name Annette. I don't know why. I don't have any family that I know of with the name Annette or Anne. I don't have an aunt Anne or Annette or grandmother or something like that. But I always liked the name Annette. And then
Good.
Lisa Annette Minor, so it's Lamb. So of course, without the B, but Lamb, So I thought, well, we could call her, Lisa Lamb, or Lamb
Yeah.
Chop.
My sister was her middle name's Anne, and that's one reason we named my daughter Anne. My mother's middle name is Anne,
Mhm.
so we decided to keep that thread. But and we were thinking about my oldest son naming him Seiya because
Say
it sounds like Thayer, but there is a Seiya in Japanese
right.
as a first name, right?
Mhm.
But we didn't. We thought that might be too confusing, consequently for Americans. Yeah. So yeah, so that's how we decided. But my sister was Heather Ann Morrow
Mhm.
Ham for the first 30, 20 something years before she got married.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
What I think is, I remember, I don't have any statistics. I should have looked this up before we came online here, but the initials for first name and last name, the initials JC are just
mhm.
so prominent throughout history. If you think about famous people, there's just a predominance of people who have the initials JC. Of course, Jesus Christ, Julius Caesar, Judith
There you
Chris.
go.
I mean, the John. There's so many Johns, and then
Interesting.
and so on. But JC, those initials of first and last name seem to be
Yeah.
amazingly dominant.
There is an episode of Freakonomics Radio.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Freakonomics Radio?
I think you mentioned it to me
broadcast.
before, but I'm not a listener. No.
I love it, and they did an episode on that. I'm pretty sure it was Freakonomics. Yeah, years ago. Gosh, I forget what names they covered. I'll have to reinvestigate that. But yeah, they did, and they kind of interviewed some famous people with basketball players and sportsmen with interesting names, and they felt that it was a positive influence on them.
Mm-hmm.
There was some negativity too. They interviewed a few people with strange names that kind of had a negative feeling towards their name. Yeah, they felt it kind of detracted from their success or what have you. Yeah, what were those? I can't recall right now. Sorry. I should have researched it too. But yeah, there were some names that were problematic for people, right, growing up, right. And even in their adult lives. I'll have to look at that. Yeah, but interesting. Yeah.
Cool.
Next time.
Yep, absolutely.
What else do we have today, question-wise? Or
yeah. Then another thing another question that we had was: is the meaning of life the same for animals
and humans? Yeah. Good. I don't think so. No. I would say no.
Okay.
Actually, yeah.
Why not? What's the difference?
Well, I think and of course I don't know 100%, but I think as humans, we have the ability to rationalize, and we have the ability to think and feel emotion that is, relative to humans. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, and it depends what level of animal you're talking about too. But I think, it's and it of course depends on the meaning of life for everyone too. But I think for us,
what is the meaning of life, right? What is the meaning of life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Well, I think for us, it's, we fear death. We're afraid of things. We let fear get in the way. We sometimes don't like challenging ourselves, and sometimes animals, I think, these things are innate. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how animals feel when they die, but some animals go off alone. If they're in a herd, they kind of go off alone, and every other animal kind of leaves them, and they just kind of go to their demise, sort of, right? In a wild animal herd, for example. My mom, though, she has a dog that had a disease called what was it? It was an intestinal disease. I forget the name of it right now, but she was convinced that the dog knew there was a problem. And I think the dog knew there was a problem, but she was kind of under the influence that the dog, felt really badly about the problem, and was kind of, not looking forward to the end and to dying. And eventually they put her to sleep, and my mom felt that the dog knew she was going to go be put to sleep and whatnot,
Mm.
Yeah,
definitely. I mean, animals have a lot more awareness than probably we give them credit for.
Mm-hmm.
Self-awareness to a certain extent, but also awareness of other animals and humans, their caretakers and so on. But that kind of brings me back to the question, the meaning of life. So it seems to me that the meaning of life, it's not a given, but people kind of create it for themselves. And for many people, I think the major meaning to their life is their relationships with other people, especially family, close friends and so on. That's what gives their life meaning. And I don't think that that's necessarily, if that is the case, I don't think that's necessarily a human-only trait. We've seen things like, as you said, it depends on the level of the animal, I guess, for lack of a better word. But elephants seem to mourn the passing of members of their group, of members of their family, and so on. And
yeah, I guess that's true, right? Yeah.
And even dogs that we've heard stories of dogs that are very have very strong ties, emotional ties with their owners and with their family and so on, that do heroic deeds or travel long distances in order to be reunited with them and so on. And so isn't that the meaning to that dog's life, is that relationship with their master, with that human family and so on. So in that way, it seems to be a very strong parallel between the meaning of life for a human and the meaning of life for animals.
Yeah, interesting. It's really interesting. I saw this thing on the news where a dog, the owner was in the hospital with COVID, and the dog found his way to the hospital and sat outside for day after day after day after day, right, waiting to get a glimpse of the owner. Yeah. And the people like didn't know where this dog was coming from, and finally I guess the guy's family told the hospital, well, that's my husband's dog or what have you. He really wants to see the husband, and we suppose, and that's why he's here probably. And eventually they brought out the owner for the dog, right? And it was just an ecstatic kind of reunion.
Cool.
But yeah, I think there are these things, definitely. Sure. Yeah. Well, whether a mouse is going to know that it's going to get eaten by a snake or what have you, or whether the snake feels remorse for the mouse, before it eats it. Yeah, these things, I mean, it's nature too, right? So
exactly. That's one thing that I don't want to belittle anyone's beliefs or about their particular diet choices and so on. So I'm not saying that there are right or wrong choices about things like veganism and so on. But I often wondered why is such a strong feeling about the killing of animals. I mean, I can see the method of killing. I am not one that wants to see animals suffer needlessly, but yet we wouldn't begrudge a lion taking down an antelope, and so why would a hunter taking down that same antelope, why would that be such such a moral sin or such an affront to nature? Yes, the lion has few other choices. They're going to kill some other animal for their sustenance, and we have choices. But that's isn't that the point, that we have the choice to include meat in our diet? And so why not? I mean, to me, morally, it doesn't seem to be reprehensible at all.
It's true. Hang on one second. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I got to take just one pause.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So again, I myself am not vegan or vegetarian, although I do try to eat healthy and reduce the amount of meat in my diet. And yet, when I do choose to eat meat, which is not rarely, I admit that, but choosing that, I don't feel guilty. I don't feel that it's a morally bad decision and so on.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've seen programs where, like hunting programs and whatnot, where people go out hunting and kill animals, and they stress that, and I agree with this too. They stress you should thank the animal for its giving its life so you can sustain your life. Yeah, exactly. So even if they kill like a little grouse or a little kind of chipmunk or what have you, or something to eat, they thank it. Yeah. So
right.
That's sure.
Which sounds very Native American type of, everything is part of the whole, right? The earth is, the Mother Earth and so on. And so each part of it that, gives way or, makes is sacrificed for another part. And so, we should be thankful for that and recognize that and so on. And that's a beautiful idea. I think I was just talking that I don't have any kind of moral qualms about my consumption of meat, but I guess I do have moral qualms about moral reservations about things like where an animal is tortured in order
Mm.
the cultures that believe that the torturing of the animal before it's killed for the food and somehow enhances the flavor of the food. Um,
Hang
and
on one second.
sure,
Sorry.
sure. Um,
Order this.
but and I don't have any kind of moral
You must have seen me.
grounds to
Here,
be
I don't got
saying that something is right or is wrong. But for me, the infliction of pain and suffering on an animal in order to increase its taste better doesn't seem like a morally justifiable action. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Yeah.
But but there are people that do that, and so because I don't believe in absolutes, everything is relative. Because I don't believe in absolutes, I can't really come down strongly and say no, that is an absolute wrong either. I'm too wishy-washy.
Yeah, I mean, no, there you go. There you go. Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting, right? Very, very interesting. And it's, yeah, nowadays is to each his own. And I think, yeah, we're aware of these things, I think. Whereas maybe 20 or 25 years ago, I don't know if I would have been aware of thanking an animal,
Right, right.
for its giving me its sustenance and what have you.
Well, that's because we basically, carried out genocide against the Native Americans
Yeah.
and didn't, adopt
There you
any of the culture there. So if we had, we would have had those kind of ideas, much longer ago. But yeah,
Yeah,
so
for
just
sure, for sure, for sure.
yeah. But we were talking about, dying, and people dying and animals dying and being aware of their death and so on. But that kind of leads into the next question. If you had a loved one,
Mm-hmm.
someone extremely important to you, and that person was killed in front of you before your very eyes. You witnessed their death. You're absolutely certain that that person uh, was no longer living. But then, through whatever technology that, of course, doesn't exist now, but if there was a technology that they could atom by atom recreate that person,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So that that person was, down to the atomic level was exactly the same as the person before. You've seen this person die, and you're not bringing them back to life, but you're arranging all the, all the material of that, into, down to the atomic level into the same person. Would they be the same person to you, and would they still be as important to you? Would you still feel the same love for that recreated person as the original?
That is an interesting question. Gosh, yeah. This reminds me of a movie I saw. Gosh, when was it? About 25 years ago with Robin Williams. What was it? The Fisher King, I think it was called,
Yeah,
where he was walking along with his wife and she got killed right in front of him like that. Like
right.
that exact scenario. And I was newly married at the time, and I just couldn't see that happening. I was freaked out. I was shocked beyond belief. Oh my God, what a horrible thing to happen. Yeah. And what happened? Yeah, he kind of lost control of his entire life and became homeless and questioned his whole meaning of his life. Right now, she didn't come back as a recreation, of course, that wasn't in the scenario. But yeah, I think to have something back, yeah, would be great to have that continue and move on, right? Like,
Yeah, to have that back, something back would be great
wow.
to continue. But would it be the same? I mean, would you have the same level of emotion for that replacement as for the original? Would
I
it be
guess
the original in your
if
mind?
I guess if you think about it too much, if you overthink it, no, right? You think, well, this is a recreation. This is a scientific or a medical creation. It's not really uh my wife or what have you. But in the emotionally, maybe it would satisfy or at least kind of help go through the time, right?
Mm.
Especially if it's sudden, yeah.
To me, it would be just
Robin
the opposite.
Williams' character is like boom, sudden, and then it's right in front of him. Like I guess her brain was smashed all over, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, but yeah, so you saw that happen, but then through technology, they were able to bring someone that, like I said, is indistinguishable, from personality, the physical, everything. This is, the same person. Wouldn't it be the same person? I mean, I'm thinking about things like going back to my days of watching Star Trek. I mean, Star Trek, beam me up, Scotty, right? So, they
Yeah.
are, it didn't seem that they were, the question was, were they actually moving those same molecules of the body, or were they scanning the information and then, creating, recreating, the different molecules, different atoms onto, into the new location, so that the actual physical person wasn't moved, but the information, all the information was carried there. And so Captain Kirk was the same. He's down on the planet, and you beam him up to the Enterprise, and he's still the same Captain Kirk, right? So wouldn't that be the same thing? Or if we could do that, right? Let's say, okay, let's leave this about the being killed. Okay, let's say they developed the technology, the transformer technology, the beam me up, Scotty. They've got that, right? You step into the platform here, and
the transporter, isn't it? The
transporter, the transporter. Sorry, not transformer. That's a different movie, right? But the transporter. You step into the transporter, and it basically tears your body apart down to the molecular, the atomic level, and then in a distant place, it recreates using all that information to recreate you with all your memories, all your thoughts, physically exactly the same. So are you the same person then?
Yeah. That's like teleportation type of a thing too.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, and if you look at the movie The Fly, right? Do you remember that movie?
Yes.
With Jeff Goldblum, right? The Fly. He was, teleporting, and a fly got into the booth there, I guess, when he was reforming into a person, and it kind of, they melded together. So in his case, no, he was definitely not the same person. Yeah,
that's right.
He kind of reformed into this thing with the fly structure, right? So yeah, that's a hard one. That's a great one for a science fiction story, isn't it? Yeah. I think right.
But like
so it's similar to your question. Yeah, the recreating someone, right? Is it the same person? Yeah.
I mean, it goes back to the old philosophical question, right? I can't remember who it was, but if you have a ship, right, and the ship makes travels around the globe, right? It takes a year to travel around the globe, and of course, the ship during that time needs repaired, right? And so, if over the course of the voyage, every single plank, every single piece of that ship has been replaced, is the ship that returns to the port a year later, where every piece of it has been replaced, is it the same ship or not?
Yeah. Right. That's
true.
Right?
I mean, most people would believe that it's the same ship. I mean, looking at the people that watched it leave, and then it comes back, and the same people are on it. The ship is in the same shape, of course. Visually it looks exactly the same. So for all practical purposes,
there be two answers to that? It is, but it isn't. I mean, does it have to be one or the other? I mean, right?
Well, I mean, we'll take that to a more personal level. Are you the same person that you were even yesterday?
Yeah. Okay.
Because everything that we eat, of course, we're sloughing off cells all the time. Cells are dying and being replaced and so on. So at what point are you no longer you? If there's a no at all to that question.
Well, I hear you. My brain never goes into another person's body, and nor does it go into an object, right? Right. So my brain, I'm always me in that respect. I always wake up and see my own face in the mirror.
Wait a minute, are you your brain?
okay, not my brain, my okay, me as in me, right? Okay, me as in my consciousness, whatever that is, doesn't meld into someone else's consciousness, or it doesn't meld into an object's consciousness. Like I'm never my cell phone,
Right.
right? And I wake up relatively similar, not the same probably, but similar to what I was yesterday.
Yeah.
My face is the similar, right?
Yeah.
My body's similar. I mean, I still have my little gut ring there, right?
Yeah,
My
but
spare tire.
mentally, I mean, even a few years ago, I think about, when I was in high school or when I was at university or when I first came to Japan and, my, political leanings, my, my dietary choices and, all these different things, my musical choices, all these different things have changed over time, right? And those are all part of my personality, my consciousness, and so on. And that's all changed. So, am I the same person, that I was in high school? I mean,
Well, don't you like the some of the similar music you did in high school?
yeah, I
I
do.
do. I
Yeah.
sure do.
But
Yeah.
then, a lot of my friends like the same one. So my friends are not me. So, liking
Yeah.
the same, music, having the same musical choices, doesn't necessarily mean the same person. And what about, yeah, you were talking about consciousness, which is a very, slippery kind of thing. We don't have a good definition of what our consciousness is, but do you remember Max Headroom?
Yeah, I do.
Right. So what if we could do, and there have been variations on that, what was it? Johnny Depp did one too, not too long ago. He was in Transcendence, I think it was. But anyway, the idea of, putting a consciousness into a, a electronic brain type of thing. If you could transfer your Jeff, right?
Sorry.
Right, Jefferson T. Smitherington's consciousness into a separate physical, into your iPhone, then
Yeah.
would that iPhone be you?
Yeah, seriously. I that's a really, it is an incredible food for thought. Yeah, I remember Max Headroom. That was an interesting, very interesting show. Yeah, yeah, and it was he was actually right, quite. I was fond of Max.
Oh yes, I love that. I
Very
love
fond
that
of
show.
Max.
The pilot episode about blipverts. I thought that was great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they were, it's kind of a critique of advertisement, which of course, television, needs advertisement in order to, to be able to afford to produce these shows, right? But it was, the idea that, that these broadcasting companies will do anything, include putting the public at risk in order to maintain their audience and so increase their revenue, right?
Yeah, of course, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a great idea. It's a great food for thought. I love it. I love it.
So, yeah, that was a great show. I'd love to see more of that. And every once in a while, I go back, I do a search and find an old episode of Max Headroom and watch it. Yeah, I stumbled across it a couple of times. It's great. It's
Great.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've covered the three questions that we had lined up for today. So, and we've how long have we been on? Oh, we've been on for almost an hour. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's a long one, but it's great. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for joining me again today. We will.
Thank you, Daniel.
Make a list of three more questions, and we'll plan on layman's philosophy number 3 next time.
Let's do it.
All right. Good.
Thank you, Daniel Wade. Bye. Thank you very much.
Bye.